And we're live. Welcome to the Gored Ox Pub, where we keep
That's me.
the dream alive. It's nestled in our basement.
just like our only fan. Not to be confused with OnlyFans, because that would have to be plural.
Yep. Oh, goodness. Yeah, like I wanted to get so when you use OBS for what I'm doing screen captures. That's all I'm doing right now.
There's a lot of stuff you can do with OBS.
Right, but so I'm doing screen capture. Like I'm doing just a tutorial on how to check your grades, how to see if you have missing work, that kind of thing. And so you have to do this thing called, you have to renew it, which I was like, what the hell? Looks like Remux, REMUX. All right, cool. So I was learning these things because the first couple times I tried to make a video, it would not work because it's the wrong file format. Because OBS is set for a different type of file format. And I read about why you might want to change that in settings. And it was like, but whatever. It's just one of those things where just the learning process of all of that just takes forever. So I was hoping today I would get time to review some of the video I took. And nope, hasn't happened yet. And part of the problem is just that I'm teaching a different grade than I've taught 16 years. So some of the stuff I have is okay, but most of it, even stuff that's the same concept, has to be altered. So it's like starting from over with nothing.
Are you teaching the same subject?
It's still English, but
Well, I mean, are you teaching like writing, or is it just English? Like, is it more of a blanket category or more?
it's a blanket category.
Okay.
You have to do reading comprehension, and we have to do writing for tests. Basically, that's what they really want us to focus on. So, not good writing, just how to pass a test. Which is sad because there's a kid in one of my classes, and he sent me a link to his novel. And
Oh, that's cool.
so I'm going over it, and yeah, it looks like a 7th grader wrote it, but you know what?
Hey, a 7th grader wrote a novel. That's some shit right there.
Well, yeah, like I was like, you've done a lot of work. Like, I think that's great. And really, if there's one thing I would say about my own writing career is there was no reason I couldn't have been doing this sooner. Because, I make about the same amount of money as I did when I first started. But still.
Well, so I really started trying to write at 18. I just got sidetracked and had other priorities, making money and stuff like that.
Right.
But what I didn't have was the availability to tap into the information center of the world, right?
Right.
Like I couldn't just type up something I was looking for and bang, it was there.
Oh yeah.
Which is, I'm not envious. I'm just glad that it's there for the kids now, but cautiously, right? Because unfortunately, there's also a lot of misinformation out there as well as there's information.
So I've been doing some world building, and it's fine, and I got some pros out of it. Like I'm like, okay, like I started and then rewrote a short story basically, and it was kind of weird because like I knew who my characters were. This is what I was talking about last time with outlining. I thought I knew everything. I thought everything was outlined, and yeah, the female character's personality was never really fleshed out, for lack of a better term. So pardon the pun, but
I don't think it's much of a pun, but yeah,
it's just it is. It's but anyway, but just. Until I had a good idea, like even, I mean, I understood all the words and I had quite a bit, like I can show you later. I had like a pretty good description of a personality, but I didn't feel it. Oh, hold on a second. I'm being summoned.
Summoned.
All right. My son he had questions for packing my lunch, which he normally does not pack me lunch, so that was kind of cool. So, but anyway,
yeah, it feels backwards, huh?
Yeah. So, like I outlined pretty well, but until I had the feel for it, I didn't really like the character. Like I didn't have her voice yet, and I described one and all that, but it just wasn't. Couldn't hear it. Like I could hear the guy's voice, could hear his just fine, but the girl's voice, and I don't think it's because she's a girl. It's just because I just didn't have her down yet, no matter how much I outlined. So,
well, I don't think you can really outline her voice. I think that's where I agree with Brandon Sanderson. You outline your milieu, and your plot, and you discover your character as you go. That's the more natural way. But if you know your milieu, you know where they grew up, what their sensibilities are, from, like, what their civilization. That's really bad, but like their society. You know what their society values and what their society pretty much teaches, looks at, respects for careers, which changes from society to society, right? And then you've got the different people in there. So your character, you don't need to flesh your character out. You can let that character kind of come to life, discovering as you go, or her as you go, as long as you know where they came from and what life is like for them, and the troubles that they're going to be, fairly big troubles that they're going to be dealing with. So I kind of agree with Brandon Sanderson about Discovery writing your characters, but doing more details on the other parts of the story. I think so. Since we talked about that extreme plotting, I posted something in the 𝑩𝒂𝒓𝒃𝒂𝒓. That was a quote from Robert McCammon, and it was part of the preface of the new the new copy of Boy's Life, the new printing of Boy's Life, because people had asked him, where he got the idea from and all that. But on his website, there's a lengthy explanation, which I found interesting because originally when he wrote Boy's Life, it was supposed to be just a kind of murder mystery. And it was supposed to be a murder mystery where the secrets and answers lay beneath a lake that had flooded a town. So there's a town beneath a lake. And then the main character was going to be the sheriff. And he's like, oops, I almost bored myself to sleep right there. So what he did was he outlined that, and then when he started writing, it just didn't feel right. It didn't gel with him. So he actually scrapped 200 pages and then decided that he had been wanting to write a story about a kid that wanted to be a writer that whose town influenced them. And he said, well, I'll just, write this story with that story and see if it works. And that's what ended up being Boy's Life. So he said he only outlined one entire story, and he never finished writing it. It's that same old Pantser thing, though. I mean, he didn't finish writing it because what he'd already written, he didn't feel like he had to write the story now because he'd already told the story to himself. And he's like, I write for myself first, and if you're writing for yourself in the first place, then once you get done with an extensive outline, you've really written the story. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of a mixed mind about it. Like I've read some authors that do extreme outlines that are really good, and then I've also read a lot of them that just kind of fly by the seat of their pants. And then, like Brandon Sanderson, there's a lot of them that mix where they basically outline their plot and they outline their milieu. And then they just find the characters as they go along. And I kind of think that's more natural. I generally start with a character. Like I might start with a germ of an idea, but usually if I don't have a character to go with, then I don't go very far. Because I'm following the character into that milieu.
So the only thing I see in the 𝑩𝒂𝒂𝒓𝒃𝒂𝒓 is some memes, and I think Mark's incorrect interpretation of Fight Club.
I guess that's that's an argument that I don't know if it's so much as an interpretation of what he feels is a deeper meaning behind it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just looking at this one thing where he notes that the narrator is dragged across the parking lot by Durden,
Right.
as if and that Norton is being dragged across the floor in an impossible way, and that there's a shot where Durden is observing the narrator from the second floor of the house, and I don't see that as being inconsistent with anything with the story, because
when he's talking about the narrator being dragged,
yeah,
he's saying that he's being dragged by being dragged physically, and then when you see it through a camera, he's being dragged as well. You just don't see who's on the camera. Like he's obviously still being dragged. Like he's not doing it himself. He's not pushing his feet across the floor, but he's still being dragged by his hair or whatever he's being dragged by.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole premise starts around the fact that he fights himself and he receives injuries, and he has no perception that this is him doing it to himself. So the idea that the shot's reliable, that someone's pulling his hair, and because that's what we're being shown. Well, we were shown originally he was fighting two people. He was fighting someone. Someone was hitting him, he was hitting himself.
Well, he wasn't hitting himself the whole time, though. I mean, sometimes
he was on the first fight.
Well, when he went in to fight his boss. Wait a minute. The first fight
between the narrator and Durden.
Yeah, I didn't think that was. Hold on, I didn't think that was the first fight. I thought the first time he fought was in the underground parking garage.
Nope, it's in a parking lot. It's the scene where Edward Norton actually did punch
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt in the ear. And that line, "You hit me in the ear," it's not in the script. It was just, that's what he said, because Edward Norton had actually hit him. Like, what the hell? You hit me in the ear.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but for some reason I was thinking it was that he jumped in when there was a circle that people were fighting in.
No, because that would be after the Fight Club started.
They did show him beat himself up in his boss's office.
That's true. But again, and they show it later on. They go through and you get a perspective after Durden. I'm pretty sure this is the order. After Durden says that he is the narrator, basically, because the narrator's never named.
Right. Never named in the book. He's named in the movie, right?
No, he's not named in the movie.
Huh.
And
guess I never noticed that either. I guess it was that eye thing, you know?
Right. And then so after he's revealed, then we get to see a shot of the first fight, the guys coming out of the bar, or whatever it is, and seeing Edward Norton beat himself up. And is that, we kind of, that's part of the reveal.
Yeah, see, I actually thought that, like he was saying that he was looking down from the third story or some shit on him. And that was proving that it was an outside entity, or, well, not proving, but led him to believe it was an outside entity. I thought, well, you can imagine whatever you want. I mean, you can imagine looking down on yourself.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Plus, we know there's a scene where the
It
narrator
is a little bit cheating the reader, though.
but there's a scene where the narrator receives a phone call at a payphone, and it says on the payphone that it cannot receive calls. So, yeah, Edward Norton's character is clearly invented. Now, I think one of the more interesting theories I've seen, though, I forget what her name, whoever the chick's, whatever her name is, the one that goes to the self or the group therapy sessions and stuff.
I get what you're saying. Tim Burton's ex-wife there.
Yeah, but there's a theory that says she's not real either.
Yep, I've heard that theory.
Which I kind of liked it. I was like, oh, that's kind of fun.
And I think Chuck Palahniuk doesn't want to answer those questions.
It's more fun. Just
well, it means more if you leave it up to the reader, right? Because the reader decides for himself what the story is about that way. So Mark's interpretation could very well be right for Mark, you know.
Okay.
I think. You can't claim that because Chuck Palahniuk never answered those questions. You can state what your evidence is, and that leads you to believe whatever, which I don't agree with Mark's theory either, but I can see how it's a valid thinking. You know what I mean?
I just think it has to ignore other evidence. That's my problem with it.
Well, yeah, there is that, but then we're also saying that you have to ignore other evidence for the other theory as well. I mean, like you have to say that he is inventing it whole cloth in his brain for it to be a multiple personality versus
yeah, but that's backed up by more evidence.
Versus, well, I don't know. Like, can a demon make you believe you see things that you don't see or feel things you don't feel? I don't know. It's a theory. It's not my theory, but I can see how it's a valid theory. That's all I'm saying.
I think Durden says, that the narrator made him up, and
so
versus the demon angle requires you to attach something that's not from the text.
You scrolled all the way down in 𝑩𝒂𝒓𝒃𝒂𝒏 because this is the very last post.
Plagiarism, cat things.
Yes.
Yeah, but I swear to God, I had already been down there.
Right underneath of that, Jake says, and then I say, maybe you just didn't scroll all the way down, just thought you did. Or I've had it where I scroll down and it kind of bounces back up, which is weird, but of course I've got a rolling mouse. I've got a trackball. So that's a possibility as well. Nobody's saying hi. We've had at least 2 people here.
They were enthralled with our discussion of Fight Club.
Right. So when we discuss political Fight Club, everybody leaves. So when we discuss the movie Fight Club instead of the politic Fight Club, still everybody leaves. I thought people were attracted to this shit. So I did have word from the person who is paying for this.
Yeah.
And he likes it. Of course, the whole house is sick, I guess. So
his whole house is sick?
Yeah.
That's not cool.
No, it happens though, right?
Oh, I completely understand.
Like Like we're talking about, me and Amanda were talking about this the other day when you got sick and your kids were sick. Like every time school starts back up, that kind of happens around here. So
Yeah,
it's not really a surprise.
I don't normally get hit with much, um, but the boys are at a different school, and so, and I'm at a different school, so yeah, I just think it's we're exposed to more things, which whatever, that's just part of life until it's not. This is good. Good YouTube.
This is good. You heard me?
Yeah. Ah.
Well, you could be having conversation as well.
Okay.
Well, if you start something, then I can talk. But I'm looking at references, so if anyone's curious of what the hell I'm doing.
I already figured you were looking for references. Yeah, so Saturday when I'm playing around with OBS and trying to learn how to do things, it's currently still easier to start over from scratch than it is to edit the file, or edit the video. Now, I'm not saying that it will always be easier just to do it over again. But with my knowledge level and my skill and how much time I have, it's like, all right, learn one part of this process at a time, not all of it at once. Probably be a lot more successful if we just go slow. But, if there was one video, aside from the first one, which was like 30 minutes long, which is way too long anyway, and then like I had to do that 3 times because why not? And then I did it a 4th time, but without any of the explanation. So it was down to like 5 minutes, whatever. There was another video. It wasn't as long, but I switched between a screen, and I'm kind of paranoid about student privacy, and I was like, oh, it had someone's username pop up. So I was like, no, can't use that. And it always happens right at the end. It never happens at the beginning. It's always. You're like 1 minute left to go. Oh, look, you've screwed up your video. And it really shouldn't be that hard to edit out.
Right.
I'm pretty certain I know how, but I've never done it. So it's just one more thing to take up more time. Oh. Oh, hold on a second. I'm doing something again. Hit the wrong button.
Huh?
Nothing, babe. So, my boy had a therapy session today, and he wanted to drive there. Fine, not a problem. But my wife and I switched cars because she's driving a lot farther now, and so the brakes are a little looser on the car. And, you know, it's a wider car. It's older. It's older than he is. It's what year is the Buick, babe?
88.
It's an 88. So yeah, we get in the car and he just, and I don't know why, because he's never done this in my Sonata, but he just turned the key and kept on cranking it.
Oh.
And I was like, no, what are you doing? just, oh, it was not a very auspicious start to the drive.
No, it doesn't seem like it would be.
Oh. It's kind of weird. Like when I watch him drive, it's like he makes a decision and he's going to follow through on that decision no matter what. And, you know, like, you can't do that with driving. You know, if you decide you're going to turn right and someone is there, you can't keep turning right.
Right.
Yeah, it's just weird. But, whatever. Yeah, so part of the whole starting from scratch type thing that sucks is that I got to make a whole new vocab list every week. That requires quite a bit of work. And then everything out of that textbook is new to me. So I got to read, everything. Like I'm not really familiar with it. And I make all my own assessments and whatnot. So I'm having to go through it, and it's just, a bunch of work that I don't really want to do. And the worst part is kind of I can see possibilities of how to do things, which kind of just, it's kind of like when a writer gets stuck on world building instead of actually writing the story. So, anyway. Saw a video on YouTube where they were discussing basically characters that have disappeared. And one of them was called Wondar. I guess it was a Marvel thing, I think. I don't recall ever seeing this guy. And he's basically Space Jesus. And they were talking about it, and I was like, this sounds a lot like what they did with Captain Marvel in the MCU. Only it's a dude. So, I don't know. It was weird. I don't really I don't care for Space Jesus stories normally. But that's just me. Saw a meme today about how, and just like that, we're no longer talking about eating pets or all these things that, whatever. I'm like, okay, you're upset that people are talking about the assassination attempt?
The news keeps bringing it back around. They talk about the attempted or assumed assassination attempt or something like apparent assassination attempt.
Yeah.
And then they bring it around to cats and threats. Did you know that the mayor, when they were talking about bomb threats and all this other shit,
Oh, yeah, that was another thing.
No, the governor of Ohio. It's Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The governor of Ohio said that there were 34 bomb threats, and they investigated them, and they were also 34 hoaxes. Some of them called in from out of country. And the narrative still is that Trump inspired people to bomb threat. Really? He inspired people from out of the country to bomb threat?
And how did he do that?
And why is there 10 seconds on the assassination attempt when it's the second one in 8 weeks? And a whole bunch of stuff on false bombing attempts or false bomb threats.
Well,
which has been debunked by the governor.
Because when you said there were 2 assassination attempts, I was thinking that there had been a third one. And
no, that was a debate.
Right. There was a guy in Arizona that was arrested for because he had a gun, I think, and it made threats or something like that. And there was another one that somebody brought up, so there was 2 that are kind of wet blanket. I'm pretty sure probably happens to everyone in public life. Well, I mean that Arizona one. I remember that. I wasn't sure if the guy was there to supposedly for RFK Jr. or if it's for Trump, but yeah, there was a third incident at the very least, and yeah, and they want to talk about.
Yeah, I haven't heard of the third incident, so this is news to me. Also, I just heard earlier, which apparently is much more evident in people who watch TikTok, that the second shooter, the nutball, this last guy that just got busted, was also in the BlackRock commercial.
Huh. Oh God, that's interesting. Well, you know, I'm using Google. I'm going to guess they're hiding a few things. But,
yeah, if you're using Google, then your results are going to be skewed anyway.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. There was a guy that was not. He made threats against Trump right before Trump was in Arizona, I think. Yeah. So the guy was arrested. Anyway. Yeah, so just I like the gaslighting about the gaslighting.
It's insane is what it is.
Yeah.
Like they just can't admit that somebody tried to kill Trump. Now it's Trump's fault that somebody tried to kill him twice.
Yeah.
And like nothing to do with Harris and Walz's campaign, even though there was a Harris wall sticker, you know, in the guy's window, and he's an absolute nutbag when it comes to his politics. Yeah, that must have been Trump. He must have been a right winger. Like they always say, it was a right winger at first, you know.
Well, they also always say
first of all, right wingers are better shots.
Yeah. Well, again, they like to say that the biggest domestic threat comes from right-wing extremism, and I keep thinking, I don't recall any assassination attempts from Republicans.
Right. Now that was something Ben Shapiro just brought up, is that nobody on the right is thinking that they're going to shoot Kamala or Tim Harris or Tim Walz and
right.
the bad policies. So here's an alternate theory. You want to hear an alternate theory?
Okay.
It wasn't an assassination attempt. It was a terrorist attack.
Okay.
Define terrorism.
Well, no.
Well, like the legal definition of terrorism is to try to affect political change by violent acts. He's claiming that he was trying to affect the violent or political change with a violent act.
Yeah.
So he should legally be a terrorist.
See, part of the interesting thing about that is, I don't know. They just paroled Reagan's.
John Hinckley
Yeah.
Jr. Or is it John Hinckley? I can't remember.
I don't know. But they paroled him. And I'm like, why the hell would you? I mean, just, I'm sorry, you take a shot at the president. It shouldn't be.
It's treason right there, at the very least. And that's a hangable offense.
Yeah, that's what I find kind of strange about that. So.
Well, it was a Republican, so they must be evil in the first place. Must be evil in the first place.
Oh yeah, I saw something that Martin Shoemaker posted about. Hold on a second, because I'm not saying I necessarily want to do this, but at the same time, I'm thinking I don't know if I would be averse to doing it. It's kind of a group writing thing. Let me see if I can find it again. And I'll read it to you. But the concept, okay, Facebook, could you maybe, thank you. Gosh, you're slow. All right. Keep going. Oh, by the way, you're active on Facebook.
I'm active on Facebook.
Well, that's what mine's telling me, because it's being ungodly slow. Yes, I'm streaming with you tonight. See, I just got it.
Oh.
I'm gonna be grumpy if he deleted this, because I was intrigued, and that would make me grumpy. Basically, this is what he said. Since I can't find it, and now I'm suspicious that it's gone. Basically, you could have like a group read over Zoom, and he had kind of outlined some of the stuff he thought would probably be necessary for it. So that was kind of nice, and I don't remember them. I just thought, oh yeah, I'll just, look it up on his thing, and he got rid of it. I swear to God, he did. Unless my filters are just wildly off.
Well, Facebook sometimes don't show you everything on the timeline.
I know, it's
so if you liked it, it should be under your recent activity, though.
I don't know if I liked it. What's the other problem? Yeah, there's like, ooh, Facebook or Martin, one of you is letting me down. Not that Martin knows me anything, but In fact, it really should be Mr. Shoemaker because I don't know him very well at all. Like I've met him virtually for through writing conferences, but
Yeah,
um, he,
I think I've talked to him a few times because of the Superstar stuff. So
here it is. Ah, awesome. All right.
Prep
So I'm just
discoveries
gonna
is
read-
not insane.
Yeah. It says, I had a dream where a group of writers collaborated on pantsing a novel via Zoom sessions so the audience could watch. For some reason, these were all sci-fi fantasy romance writers, but that wasn't central to the method. There's no technological reason why this can't work. All it really requires is a compatible group of writers, a coach to encourage them to just do it, and an editor to clean up the draft. Coach and editor might be the same person. In the dream, they were both me. It's analogous to what I hear of the writer's room for a TV show. So,
I don't know if it'd be all that interesting for a TV show. Like, just
yeah, I
depends
can't
on
fathom an audience really wanting to watch that.
right. Like, unless they're an audience of writers.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, like Brandon Sanderson does some writing online. He has videos on his YouTube channel of him writing the Caladan stuff.
Well, that's like,
But
let's see if I can find
that's not something unless you're a fan of that, you know.
it. Right. And I've seen there's a writer that I've watched her stuff on YouTube, and I'm going to butcher her last name, I'm sure. Also, I don't always agree with everything she says, so whatever. But I have found her YouTube channel at least entertaining and sometimes educational. So I think that's about as good as I can get. Jenna Morrissey. Morrissey. Anyway, she has various books and whatnot, and she doesn't need my help in any way, shape, or form. But she does streams where like group writing streams, but which I guess is a little bit different than exactly what Martin was talking about. And I've seen in the Apex Writers group where they want to do like you write at the same time for some reason, which that's always on your own work.
Yeah, that's sprints
Yeah, that's it.
where so these sprints usually it's a bunch of people getting together and then giving themselves a time limit and seeing what they can produce in that time limit.
Which,
Yeah, not for you. That's for the people that don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
I get it. I can't. Well, I won't say I can't work that way, but I just knowing someone else's writing doesn't inspire me.
Well, I think it does help inspire some people that knowing that, oh, this person only got 200 words this time, but the next time they got 1,000 words or whatever, because they're not the only ones suffering through the process, right? So
Yeah,
I'm not saying that it's going to up somebody's production or whatever, but I can understand how it can. Like just knowing that somebody else is going through the process with you.
hold on a sec. I gotta ask my wife a question. What's that thing where you sat down because you're working, other people can work?
What?
The thing you do with Rob,
Bookkeeping?
the mirroring thing,
Oh, body doubling.
body double.
Body doubling.
Thanks. God, that was complicated. Anyway.
We heard that whole conversation.
Oh, I know. I don't care. So there's.
At least
wife-
I heard that whole conversation.
My wife came across this term called body doubling. That's how I found out about it. That's why I was asking her. But for some people, having someone working does make them better able to focus.
Yeah, more productive, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, I don't. And there have been times when certain things are just hard to. They're not difficult in any sense other than it's hard to find the motivation to complete it. And sometimes just having someone there helps not make it such a chore. I don't know. But generally when I'm writing, I'm in a happy place. So even when I am writing about something that's not necessarily happy, I'm in a happy place. So.
Well, it's that if you're not having fun, right?
Right.
I mean, it's work, and sometimes it's solving problems, and that's kind of why I shared that quote, because that's what I was going through this whole entire chapter, right? Is that I'm looking for somebody to give me answers that they don't even really understand what I'm asking, and I know somewhere inside that they don't really understand what I'm asking because they're not writing it. But I'm still asking because I can't figure it out on my own. But the thing is, I can figure it out on my own if I wanted to, right?
Sure, but
Just needs to take the time.
But sometimes it's just, sometimes just formulating the question will shift the gears just enough where it all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's how I do it. Boom. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there are plenty of times when I'm stuck, I'll go and talk to my wife, and by the time I'm explaining enough of it to her so she can help, I figured it out.
Right, but you're not getting the answer from her, is what I'm saying. Like,
Right.
You're still having to answer your own question. It's still you that has to solve and resolve this. In fact, I shared that quote because it did help me somewhat. So, like, I was hoping that it would be beneficial to somebody else, just to put it in a different way. And sometimes, like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I can find the answer that I'm missing just by saying it a different way or looking at it a different way, even though it's the same thing. It's just speaking it a different way or saying it. I don't know. I'm having a hard time saying it right now, but like, it's not really coming at it from a different angle. It's just describing it from a different angle, and that's enough sometimes.
Well, it's like, so the story that I'm working on, which is, in my brain at least, it's essentially a buddy cop story. And
Are you back to your novel?
no, I'm doing this in at the same time. So that's the other thing. I keep working on like 3 or 4 things at once.
Yeah, that's how I procrastinate too.
Hey, I got a story done last week or whatever. So, or at least a pretty good draft of it. So there are some changes that need to be made. But it was a story. I should not be this tired. Anyway, so yeah, I wouldn't say it's procrastination. It's just that it's
How do you get something done? Stop starting stuff that's new.
well, yeah, but I'm still getting stuff done. So
But you haven't gotten the novel done.
that's true. But I've gotten like chapters done, and I've got
Yeah, but not the novel. But you've gotten short stories done instead of the novel.
that's true. But you know, that's kind of because they're shorter.
Who's gonna push you if I don't?
But anyway, I wrote an entire opening for this short story, and then I thought, you know what? I don't think any of that should be on the page. So then I rewrote an opening, like the aftermath of the first opening. So it hints at the first opening.
So it's like a sequel.
Sort of, except for it just, I don't know. When you see it, you'll probably know what I'm talking about if you remember. By the time you see it, if you remember it. But it was kind of weird. I went from.
Did that that critique help you?
I haven't looked at that critique yet. I just haven't had time, and I don't have time to fix that story yet. Oh, see, that's where I was procrastinating then. Yeah, okay. See, that's where you can say I wasn't done with the story. I still need to go through another draft. So, anyway. So
I can
guess
say that about the novel too, because you're not finishing the novel. You're, drafting other stories.
Except for I'm also working on. I mean, I get less done on the novel, but it's not like it hasn't stopped.
I haven't seen it in a while.
I know you haven't seen aspects of it. See, that's the other problem I have with that. You know how I like to go and make adjustments. So, like there are. If I had shared earlier some of the stuff, it would require you to reread some of the same crap, and I guess I don't want to ask you or Jake or Mark if he comes back to the group. I'm not throwing shade.
He's just not active.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not throwing shade. I recognize, obviously, as I'm going through and saying I don't have time to get everything done. But yeah, I don't want to make you guys reread, and I don't want to. I mean, whatever. I try to make it so that by the time it gets to you, it's where I think it should be. And I hate when I have, like, I've got.
See, that's a little bit different for me. Like, I trust you guys to show me, show me where I need to work on, Oh. Like, I have every faith that you guys are going to point out how stupid I am so I can fix it.
Anyway. Remember what I said about not enough time in the day? No, just kidding.
Well, don't worry about it, because there are other people that fill in for telling me I'm stupid when you don't.
Someone has to carry the torch.
Not really.
Anyway. Yeah, I think it was the last stream or the one before or something. I was talking about how, I had outlined so far, and I knew what needed to happen in the chapter, and the drop off was going to originally be at a bar, and I thought that was lame, and so then I made it to a haberdashery, which I thought was better, but still wasn't really singing for me, and the third option that I came up with, super secret option number 3, I enjoy it so much. It's dangerous enough that I'd want to write a short story just about it. So, I just think it sounds like it's hitting some buttons for me that the other 2 options weren't doing. So yeah, it's not like not like I'm not working on it. It's just how much, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit over there, just spread thin. I also feel like I'm not getting anything done at school. Like I feel incredibly slow. Which, my students would complain that I give too much work, I'm sure. Because I don't care how much work you give. Students complain that it's too much. And that's just, I don't know, kind of, it's a maturity issue, probably. I don't know. I remember, so most classes, academic classes normally come very easily to me, so that was never a problem for most classes. Like, it was just, and when it became hard, I just trudged through a lot of times. I didn't really care because, when you're taking classes because you're trying to get a degree, and it's an English degree, so you have to take biology. Like, okay, sure, whatever. Not that biology was that hard, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, there are some classes you just trudge through, and that's okay. But when I was getting my black belt, and I am one of the least graceful people ever, I was going to extra classes, and I was telling them not to count me present because if you tested after so many classes, so I just would say, that like I got an extra at least 1 or 2 classes in a week where I wasn't technically there, and I was working on my form like when we were getting close to testing for our black belts. I worked on my forms every single day. Not because anyone was telling me to, but because that's what it was, that was just necessary if I wanted to learn it. And
you were an adult, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I was an adult, and I was mature enough to recognize, hey, if I want to do this, I'm going to have to put in more effort than some of the other people because the other people are better than I am, just by virtue of having some ability.
So I was going to add that as an adult, we generally focus more on what we want. Remember, we were talking about college, and I was saying that it's unfortunate that college can't just let you choose what you're interested in to study. Like, you have to have other courses or whatever. Like you were mentioning it actually earlier, but
yeah.
As adults, we just focus on what we need to do to get what we want to get. As kids, we just think we should be able to just get it, right?
Right.
So that's the mentality that you're talking about, is that they don't want to do homework, they don't want to whatever, but they're not really wanting to learn the subject. If they really wanted to learn the subject, they would.
I know, but when you make something mandatory, it's kind of hard to want it. And,
Right. Well, you're doing it backwards. You're making it mandatory instead of finding what they want.
yeah.
Right. And that's what I said was kind of a shame that they did it that way, because other than reading, writing, and arithmetic, there's pretty much all the other things are kind of specialities anyway. Like you're not going to necessarily apply what you learn in gym class in your everyday life. Not that I'm saying that this doesn't have its value, but if you were to go for a scholarship from sports or whatever, that's a speciality. You're focusing on a goal, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's what I'm saying is it's a little bit different when they're actually forcing specialities on you instead of just letting you choose your. I guess it should all be electives after the necessities, but that's a discussion for another time. Not saying, not saying anything about teaching or teaching methods, just school and administrative shit that you would think that you would, if you really wanted to light a fire under a kid's learning, you'd go with something they're interested in. Like you said that you had one kid that wrote a novel already. That's pretty amazing, but you know that he's going to be interested in what you could teach him as far as writing goes, right?
Well, I would hope, but
unfortunately, the skin's not very thick when they're young.
Yeah, that's
sometimes when they're older too.
That's true. I think every writer probably has some kind of horror story about a person receiving a critique poorly.
Or, I'm an honest writer, so I'll tell you that I've received critiques poorly as well. But it's just a matter of whether or not the critique was something of actual value or something of just opinion. I don't like the sound of this, or I don't like what's happening here. It's not a matter of whether you like what's happening. It's a matter of whether or not, it's done confusing, or if it's done with a purpose that seems contrived, or you're asking about story mechanics, not whether or not to taste, right? Whether or not something is done to somebody else's taste.
Right.
That's the invalid critique, is when people try to tell you how to achieve something that you're not trying to achieve.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's invalid or not. I just
if they're trying to tell you how to do something that you're not trying to do, that's pretty invalid. It's not a valid critique of what you're doing.
I don't know if valid is necessary. Well, maybe it is. But if someone tries to convince me, you should be doing it this way or whatever. I mean, again, this is an abstract hypothetical. Then at least I know that, okay, they think this current version is not as interesting as some other version might be.
Except for if they're trying to tell you a story that you're not trying to achieve. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what version of it if that's not the story you're trying to tell. Like, they may give you ideas that you didn't have before, and that could be valid. But when they try to tell you how to write a story, or what story to write, because you're not writing the correct story or whatever, that's not valid.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there was, I remember a critique I gave, because I think it was received poorly, because she started yelling at me. Well, she emailed me and dressed me down for things I never said, just things I probably thought without ever saying any of them, or so she was telepathic, I guess. But she had written a story about a horse, or the protagonist becomes a horse, and to me, I was like, okay, becomes a horse. Your character just immediately goes into, this is terrible, but they were kind of grounded at the same time. Like your character is not reacting all that much, and I would think either, if you're gonna turn into a horse, you might want to react a little bit more. Plus, I was like, you're not exploring the horseness. If you become a horse and your POV is the character that becomes a horse, it's like there should be something to that. And this is a person stuck inside of a horse's body, but it's so aside from like, oh, I have to lower my head to get through this door. There wasn't a lot of reaction to the strength that you have, and all these different things that you would be experiencing if you were a horse for the first time. And so that's basically what I told her, and then she went off on me. So I was kind of telling her to tell a story that she wasn't telling, but that's
actually you weren't telling her not to write a person turning into a horse. You were telling her to characterize it better.
Well, and
that's not the same thing. That's a mechanics thing. That's a story mechanic thing.
Well, she took it as I was trying to tell her to write a story that she wasn't trying to write or something.
Were you trying to tell her not to write a person turning into a horse?
No.
Okay, so you weren't trying to tell her a different story.
I know that. Trust me, that's why I said that she received it poorly. But she was again.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood. I thought you were telling me how you told somebody to write a different story, but you didn't tell somebody to write a different story. You just told them to write it with more clarity or deeper perceptions or more characterization. That's not the story. It's mechanics, story mechanics. For those listening in,
I just think it's more of a spectrum than a cutoff point. And while I don't really feel like I tried to change her story much, I just tried to. The basics of writing to me are what I was addressing. That you need your characters have to have some verisimilitude, and that's going to be exploring your new body. And
unless there's a different plot point to it, but there should be some characterization because that's how you bring people into it, right? That's how you
right.
That's how you leave a lasting impression of what the story is and what it's about. Again, I think that's story mechanics. That is the parts that you use to tell a story. That's you're telling her to. You're not characterizing this person very well because she just accepts being a horse and has some kind of natural ability to know what a horse should do. That's different. And even then, you're still making a suggestion. You're not telling her it has to be this way. You're just telling her this is what I feel you're missing. Unless I'm missing something.
No, I just I think it's a matter of perspective. So, because technically I am telling her to write something she hasn't written. So.
Yeah, but not a story that she's not writing. That's what I was saying. Like, what I was saying is that when somebody they read the first 13 lines and they're like, they assume that it's a murder mystery when it's not. It's something completely different, correct?
Well,
And then they tell you how to write a better murder mystery, but you're not writing a murder mystery.
so
That's a bad critique.
see, but that tells you that at least one reader thought there was a promise that wasn't kept.
How do they know from 13 lines the promise is not kept?
Well, again, if
In a
nobody
short-
else feels that way, then I wouldn't worry about it. But if everyone else was like, I thought this was going to be a murder mystery.
But the
then you would
first
have
13 are about making you turn the page, not cementing you into a story.
Oh, God. The list of things that supposedly you were supposed to cram into the first 13.
No, I don't think there's a list of things you're supposed to cram into it. I think that there are certain things, certain basic things, like knowing what era a story is told in,
Yeah.
like knowing what type of story it is. Like if it's a fantasy, it should have some clear language that kind of hints at that there's a fantasy. Sci-fi as well. Murder mystery as well. There are certain language cues, prose cues, I guess. You don't have to get into every little thing. You have to have a character to follow on to the next page, right? Whether it be I or a named character. You have to have someone.
That's why
to
I
follow.
think that they.
Or if not, you better be damn good at describing. Like you have to really have a great description of your setting that pulls a reader in to go to the next page in the first 13 lines. And it's possible as well. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but that's what they're talking about. They're talking about giving your reader cues as to what kind of story it is, because as you've said and I've said, there are certain types of stories that I don't read. You don't read. So our critiques are not going to be as valid on those stories just because we don't read that type of story and we don't like that type of story. So we're going to be predisposed to something else. and that's basically what I'm saying, is that when somebody tells you, and I've seen it so many times, especially at Hat Track, where they read the first 13 lines and they assume something wrong, and it's not everybody, it's one person, but they're basically telling you how they would write a story based on the cue that they read. It's like they read a prompt instead of reading the first 13 lines of somebody else's stuff. And I think I don't think it's value at all if somebody comes and tells you, well, I don't like this name, it means this, even though it may or may not mean that. Like, I don't like a name is not a valid critique to me at all. Like even Jake saying I don't like the alien names. I don't think that's a valid critique saying that I don't like them. If they're confusing, or if you don't think they're pronounceable or something else like that, that might be a valid critique. But saying that I don't like them and just leaving it at that, that's not. That's like saying I don't like a piece of art, and that's a valid critique. It's not. It's just personalized. It's your opinion, and that's fine. You can have an opinion, but it's not a valid critique. It's not going to help my story for me to know that you just don't like a name, or you just don't like the story that's being written. It just tells me that it's not being written for you. So, I guess you could say that there's something valid in that critique, and that's that it's not for them. But that's not a valid critique. It's just something valid in that critique saying it's not for them.
Okay.
You know that that's not your audience. Okay, that's fine. I buy that, but I wouldn't jump into someone's story and tell them they need to be writing a different kind of story than they are.
Well, that's like so your novel you've been working on, one with the staff and.
That's the novel I'm working on.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've had other stuff, so I don't.
Well, that's the novel I'm working on. There's only one novel right now that I'm working on.
Okay.
That's because I was paid to work on it.
Oh,
Because honestly, I just wanted to help him get some clarity as what I was talking about as characterization, which is what we were talking about earlier. That was a critique of mine and his, and he's just like, here's some money, write it.
So like I had made comments before about paragraph, and I was very clear. At least I think I was. I hope I was. I was like, yeah. I mean, I thought they should have been bigger, and that some of the things could have been combined. Whatever, blah blah blah. But that makes it a more complicated paragraph, and if you're looking for a young adult audience, that that can be a legitimate concern or a goal, I guess, to make it more palatable to that type of reader. So.
But that's not telling me how to write the story. Or,
that's true, but
or that you don't like a name, or you don't like,
I don't know. I mean, sometimes with the names,
if you don't like a paragraph structure, and even that it's a matter of opinion. There are plenty of people that like different paragraph structures, and I don't do just one paragraph structure. Sometimes it's 3 sentences, sometimes it's one long ass sentence. Sometimes it's a bunch of short sentences that look like 2 lines.
Right. It was just on that particular section that I said that I was like, there were a lot of 3-sentence paragraphs, that's what just a lot of them. And visually they all looked about the same size, and I don't know. I think about that when I write, so I commented, but again, I also recognize if that is the only thing that you have to worry about, you don't have to worry about anything, because
and I did change some of the sentence structures and some of the paragraphs.
A lot of times,
but it wasn't just because it was one person, and that's another thing too, is that when you're taking that into account, it could be very easily it's just one person, but I'm not saying that like one person won't have the valid answer that you're looking for or anything like that, but definitely you got to take into account that it is just one person, and sometimes it may not be, you may not have read what I'm trying to write or whatever, and I'm trying to write something different that's inclusive to a wider audience, and I'm not really sure what to do on this type of ground because I'm normally not trying to write for a younger crowd. It's just, if a younger crowd likes it and is into it, that would be fine, but this started off being written for a much younger crowd that I would not normally be writing for. So and I've heard actually both ends of that argument, that so it's written kind of short sentences, and then I've heard the other end where it's like, that's written too highbrow or too complicated for a kid to be saying or thinking. Well, I know kids, 12-year-olds that they're thinking like what I was thinking when I was 14 or 15, because they're exposed to much more at a much younger age. So they may not be able to spell the things that they're saying, but they'd still be thinking them and saying them, right? So I don't know. I mean, it's some of this is a fine line between what an adult's reading and thinking as what a kid would sound like or not sound like, and then some of it's the opposite way around. They're adult reading it and saying this is,
Well,
this is not kid enough and this is too much kid, or I don't know. I want to have that kind of balance. I mean, we've had the discussion whether the narrators in a third person limited story is the equivalent to a first person story, just being able to switch points of view. And last I remember, you didn't agree with that. You thought the narrator should be specifically somebody different. So I'm trying to get enough into the head of the character to know that it's these characters' thoughts when they're there and observations when they're there, but put in a language that may not necessarily be a 12-year-old's language or whatever.
well,
Just so long as it's readable and understandable and clear enough.
the age group that I am currently teaching is around is between around 12 to 13.
Okay.
That's most of them.
And how do they talk?
And the spectrum of maturity is huge. And
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. Like, how do you represent that in one character? Let alone a girl character where that's such a big diversity too.
well, it's
My kids have long outgrown 12, and I'm not sure they would have let me know what they were thinking at 12.
probably not. I would, but keep thinking. Like, I've got this one student, and he, on one hand, he's very mature sounding, and he's pretty much just, what are we doing today? All right, let's get this done. Like, he's kind of there for what he's supposed to be there, which is a maturity thing, which is cool. And I would say he's generally trustworthy, but when you get to his boundary of what he's comfortable with, once you've reached that point, like, he takes a swift nosedive. And it's kind of interesting because he can go from seeming a lot older to seeming a lot younger in very little time. And so whenever I hear that your kid doesn't sound young enough, or your kid sounds too young, I'm thinking on some level, it's kid specific, and therefore it's reader specific too, because what sounds right to me won't necessarily sound right to other people, kind of based on what the character reminds us of in our own experience. So I would say child characters are the hardest, because whereas an adult, you can say, yeah, you're mature, you're immature, whatever. Children are both at the same time. And a reader has, like, how well are you going to capture that? Well, just good luck. That's the fun of writing, I suppose.
Well, so that's the difference between verisimilitude and reality.
Yep.
Like, I just want it to be believable. That's it. Like, it doesn't have to be exact. Like, it's probably not going to be exact. And that's another thing too. And like I was talking about this with my wife, and she's talking about the different turns of phrase that they use nowadays, the different slang.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to write the slang to be current slang, because if I write the slang to be current slang, it will date the book.
Right.
So I'm trying not to date the book. I'm trying to keep it fairly timeless. That's all I can do is fairly timeless, but fairly timeless. So I wanna be able to pretty much in any time, unless they're literally using flying cars in the current culture, then they should be able to just replace this and go over it with it. I'm trying to get the real feelings, like valid feelings of the kids and valid kind of thinking of the kids without worrying about the exact slang that they will be using, and because some of it's just it's just so easy to date, just so easy to look back and go, yep, that was obviously then. And while I'm a fan of historic fiction, I don't want it to appear that's just historical unless I want to make it appear that it's historical. I noticed, because I'm listening to David Copperfield.
Okay.
I don't know how much Dickens you've read.
I've read
What's that?
some.
Have you read this? Well, it doesn't matter. I think I've read quite a bit of Dickens, and I think that if you've read Dickens, you'll know what I'm talking about. He does not specifically talk about things of the times. He might mention once or twice in a story that somebody buys a brand new waistcoat, right?
Right.
But he won't describe what the kinds of patterns are, or he said, I think in one scene that David Copperfield bought a new pair of wheat-colored kid gloves that he kind of felt like it was opulent later on. But he doesn't describe everyone as wearing top hats and everybody is wearing front fall trousers, and you know what I mean? It's
right.
just, he just tells the story of what's happening. He only describes what somebody's wearing if it's relevant to like character motivation, or if it's out of the normal for that character. So I think that's kind of what I'm trying to employ as well. Is I don't want to, like, I described her wearing shorts and what her mom called Daisy Dukes, but I just left it at that, right? Because I didn't want her to be calling them Daisy Dukes, because I don't know if they call them Daisy Dukes now. I know my generation did, and I know the generation after mine did, and for a while. So I've got some leeway with the parent calling them Daisy Dukes. You know, until those generations are outgrown, then that would make sense. But I think that that's a part of our lexicon now. I don't think that's going to go away for a while, just like Rambo and people making comments calling other people Rambo and such, because that is a part of our language now. Like using how many. So they still talk about having film or having video, not tape, having tape and stuff like that, which nobody's using tapes or it's all digital now. So I mean, but they don't say, "Oh, I have a digital," or "I have a copy," or "I have a," you know what I mean? They don't have an alternate term for it because they still call films whether or not they're on film, because that's part of our lexicon now. And I think, to a degree, this is going to be okay. So I don't have her calling them Daisy Dukes. I have her mom calling them Daisy Dukes. And she's just saying they're short shorts. And she's wearing a t-shirt, but that's it. Like, that t-shirt could be at any time from, like, this whole outfit she's wearing could be at any time from 1975 on up to now, right?
Right.
I'll tell you, I considered and rejected having her phone be bedazzled, because I don't know if anybody still bedazzles anything anymore, right? Well, other than body parts, apparently. So
cases.
What's that?
They just put cases on their phones.
Yeah, but some of them, well, it wasn't all that long ago that they were sticking fake jewels to them. What's the big bedazzling them?
Yeah,
but I didn't. So the point was that I didn't know if they were doing them anymore, or sometimes they buy cases like that, because I have still seen them, but I don't know if it's a popular thing now as much, or if it's faded away. So instead of having her do that and dating that, I just mentioned her using a cell phone, right?
Right.
So it's some of this is really trying to be careful on what I'm choosing, so that later on, if somebody reads this in 20 years, it will still feel true. As true as it can for a fantasy. But yeah, I guess I'm trying to take a lesson from Dickens.
It's not a bad thing to take a lesson from him.
I like Dickens's work, so
there's a lot to appreciate.
And his work is not like swift plots or whatever. Yeah. They're pretty much in-depth character studies. What was I going to say about that? There was something else I can't remember. Guess it must not have been as important as I thought it was at the time. Have you ever seen the show The Dickensian? It's like Dickensian.
I guess not.
Oh, you should see that. It's basically a mini series, but it's really good. Well, I don't know what you're gonna think of it, but I thought it was really good. What they did is they took Dickens' characters and made a murder mystery of some of his pre-existing story. Like it involves Cratchit's wife, and it involves Dodger, and or what is Farragon, right?
Fagin.
Fagin, yeah.
But the Artful Dodger is Fagin's lackey.
Yes, I know, but they're separate. Well, they both in the show.
Okay.
Like I'm just saying, I think you'll enjoy it because they do really creative use of his characters. Like I don't know if you'll like it in the end, but I thought it was interesting in the end. It's like I think it poses. Is it Marley maybe? Death as a murder. I watched it on Amazon Prime. I think it was made for Amazon Prime, so. I don't think you've watched any of the stuff I recommended to you.
I don't have a whole bunch of time to watch things. I mean, part of the problem is I tend to feel guilty if I just stop to watch a show because I got other stuff to do. I always have crap to do, and I'm sure that the crap will go on even after I'm not doing it anymore. But it's one of those things where I don't know. It's hard to sit still when you think, oh yeah, I should be doing X, Y, and Z. So.
Oh, I know the feeling. It's funny, like I have those feelings, but instead of getting stuff done, I just don't get stuff done and don't watch TV. Like I get some stuff done, but of course, I think sometimes I'm overwhelmed by the amount of things I've taken on.
Yeah.
Like I'm still writing that story for the person that's actually commissioned this. And I'm trying to actually I've gotten ahead, but I haven't sent him the updated version. I'm trying to keep him a little bit ahead of what he's paid for, so that when he starts putting it up on the site, then he'll have a little bit built up that he doesn't have to worry about running out of story installments. I'm gonna have to make you a list of the movies and then see which ones you've watched, and then you'll have a list for when I'm gone.
Oh.
All these little details, and I'm gonna just put fog over it anyway.
Okay, I'll be back in a minute. I've got to see a man about a horse.
I hope you have a big ass barn because you have a lot of horses.
And I'm back.
Welcome back.
Ah,
So the guy that paid me to do this novel,
yeah.
he just told me the other day, he's like, well, don't feel like you have to. I'm like, what?
How do you meet people that just throw money at you?
Well, I hate to think of it that way because I just don't think of it that way, but I'm like,
Well, no, because you have a conscience and a reputation, and
like
you're
I'm
a good
not,
person. But
I'm like, you don't. If you think that I can't, that I'm not going to finish this, or if you think that I don't have to finish this, you really don't know me at all. 'Cause, like I don't take money for something and start something and then go, oh nope, not going to finish it. Hope you understand. You're just out X amount of dollars, and it's not like it was nothing. Like not like he was paying me like a $50 retainer or something like that.
right,
No, you paid me for it. I'm going to give you damn well give you your money's worth or die trying, you know.
That works.
And, like I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't do the best I could for him, right?
Right.
That's just I can't even imagine somebody saying, okay, just taking the money and running. Well, no, I can imagine it, but it's not me. No, it's not me.
Yeah, I wouldn't take the money and run, but I don't ever meet anyone that's willing to give up the money to begin with. So I suppose.
Well, I did not expect it. Like I was saying, I thought originally what I was talking about is getting some research material.
Yeah.
And he just went from giving me a little bit, well, a lot more than I was looking for. Like I had spent, I think, $16 on research material, and I wanted to know if I bought research material, were we going to go halves on it or what? And he's like, here, take this for research material, and then take this just so that you have something to, you know, hold you over while you're writing. Like, wow.
That's crazy.
It was surprising to me too. He don't know me from anyone, so how did he know that I was going to be honest? I mean, I'm glad that he thought that way of me because I'm going to be as honest as I can for him. But like, that's a leap of faith right there. And I wouldn't say that I find people who keep giving me money like this. Most of the people that give me money, they're commissioning me for something or buying something. So this guy actually was not particularly thinking that he needed to buy anything, which is kind of screwy because the amount of money that he gave me, like that's what a lot of book companies are giving people for down payments these days. So like I was kind of dumbfounded. I don't know. I just was willing to look at something he had posted. You know, he was posting it up for critique. He wanted somebody to point stuff out or just to make sure it was clean or whatever, because he'd been working on it for a while. I did look through it and I gave him the honest stuff. Like I was just trying to ask him questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure what this means, and I think you're missing an opportunity here to expand on the character and whatnot. And I guess he liked what he heard. And I think there was maybe 2 other people that even commented on it, so maybe that was part of it, because he had worked on it that long and there wasn't really many people that were willing to give it a look. And this is in a it's in a Discord that you and I don't know if you're in that Discord, but you should be, because...
Which one?
Huh?
Which one?
Well, see, I'm reluctant to say. Hold on a second. I'll write it in the private chat. It's actually... You introduced me.
Well,
To this.
I'm going to guess I know what it is, and I'm part of it. I just never.
Well, it's there.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where I met him.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
So, if you think about some of the conversations that we've had about him, then you would know anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's a good guy too, obviously. He didn't have to do what he did. I sure appreciate it, but and I feel that he also was telling me that he really likes my writing style, because you know he said you're a really good writer, and He felt I was an artist on all these levels. So I mean, that's about as high as a compliment as you can get paid. Somebody pays you money and tells you that you're great in his opinion, then it's really hard to go, nah, I'm gonna just chill and write something else, right? What I try to do is, if like this chapter was a really hard chapter for me, when I write the finishing touches to this chapter, I'm probably going to work on the installment story and maybe add another installment or two, and maybe actually send it off, because I told him I was going to send it off last weekend. I think maybe even the weekend before, and it just keeps not happening. So, but like that'll give me enough of a breather to go back into it, and I want to really give thought. So I know where the story is going, but I really want to give thought to what I'm going to put in each chapter. Like, I know that for a lot of people, probably they're listening, they don't know what I mean by that, but like if you know the story and you know where it's going, you know the major points along the way that have to have to achieve what you're trying to achieve, then then a lot of people are fine with just running with it. But like I want it to feel intentional at the end. So I want to be very deliberate about what I'm putting in the chapters. It's one of the things that is hard if you're doing any kind of pantsing, is to make sure that what you're writing is deliberate. A lot of pantsing, and for those who don't know, that means creating as you're going versus pre-planning it. A lot of that pantsing requires a lot of editing afterwards to make it look like it was supposed to be that way all along.
Yeah.
Because they're experimenting as they go, or we're experimenting as we go. I think all of us have tried dancing anyway.
Well, yeah, because you think, or at least I thought, you sit down and you have your premise and you just go where it logically takes you, and it's cool. And, you know, that's like saying, I want to go to Chicago, I should drive north. It's like, well, okay, it's true, for me at least. But it's a great way to drive into Michigan instead. You know?
Well, you know, if you're going, even if you're going, well, I know I want to go northwest, right?
Okay.
How many roads can you take along that route to get to northwest? And
Right.
Then like if you're wanting to go to Chicago and you take a couple of side roads and you're like, oh well, this is actually pretty interesting. Let's see where this takes us, right?
Yeah.
And then you're not going to Chicago anymore. You're going off on that side track that was interesting, which sometimes that pays off, but you got to edit it in the end to make it look like that was what your intention was all along. Whereas the opposite would be called, I think George Martin called it architects versus gardening, and pantsing would be gardening, and you're planting thoughts and seeing what grows out of it, and then architecture would be very precise planning, but you come out with two different results that way as well. So I think if that theory is correct, then very good architecture should need less editing at the end because it should already be lined up, but I think that's not necessarily the case. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I wish I could actually. This is my wish. This is where my default is. This is where I know my weak spot is. I wish that I could be like Dan Wells and really love editing, so that I could just write whatever the hell I wanted, and no matter how stupid it was, I could come back through and edit it to look good. But that's not the way it works for me. Like, editing is the most miserable part of the process for me, mostly because I have to check so many things on so many levels, and people tell me I write really clean prose on the first time and it's really whatever, but I always feel like I've got to work hard to clean it up to make it really clean at the end. And I guess it's all dependent on who's reading it, whether they feel that way too, because some people that tell me that I write really clean prose have also told me that this doesn't work and this doesn't work. Okay. I write clean prose, but the story sucks. So I guess the takeaway from that is that no matter how clean your prose is, the story is going to need some editing, and the story could possibly need a lot of work even though you have clean prose. I wonder how many people have watched, clicked on, and clicked off, or whatever.
Yeah.
Are anticipating me actually painting this thing. I was thinking.
If they're only here for brief moments and they don't really pay attention, it's going to seem like a weird comic book.
Well, this doesn't say comic book. It says, Conan versus the Winged Ape.
I know.
And the comic book says Mastiff. So, like, I try to make sure the branding is right on the video or on the live streams. I think people that are impatient enough to not watch what's going on all the way through are going to have problems with patience if they're trying to draw their stuff for themselves as well. I think it's like that first 13. The lesson that you learn from the first 13 is if there's a lot of flaws in that first 13, it's probably going to be a lot of flaws throughout the prose. At least that's what I'm given to understand is the actual takeaway from the first 13 is that whatever is indicated as bad habits in the writing, whether it be typos or incomplete sentences or confusing sentence structures or whatever, is going to be probably pretty prominent throughout the whole thing. So people that don't have the attention span to watch something like this, but they click onto it, I'm probably not going to have the attention span to do what I'm doing. And some of them probably going to do what I'm doing much faster, much better. But uh, those that don't understand it from the get-go, and they're trying to learn something, if they don't stick around, they're actually not going to learn much.
Oh. Oh, I almost did something stupid. What the hell?
Well, glad you didn't.
Yeah, me too. I just found something I didn't know I had. And almost deleted the part that I would have wanted.
Yeah, definitely glad you didn't.
Yeah. Oh. Part of the problem is I've got 2 students from Venezuela in my class, and they don't speak any English, or they speak about as much English as I speak of Spanish. So
I'm glad that
class-
didn't go where I thought it was.
it's just I'm not doing them any favors, and I feel bad for that. But at the same time, I'm like, you put people in my classroom that don't speak my language. I'm not trained to teach someone to learn English. Like, that's like, at my level, it's assumed that you kind of know some. So, in my opinion, they're not really getting anything out of my class, and I think that's not fair to them. They may be okay with it, whatever. I don't know. But I think I can do a bad job of helping them out with some vocabulary, but I got to make everything. It's like having another prep just for them, and I don't. On one hand, I feel obligated to do it, but on the other hand, I'm like, this is really more work than it's probably worth. I don't know. Oh.
Well, when you paused with the "I've got 2," and I was like, I'm glad you didn't say "Tickets to Paradise."
Nah, I wish.
Because all I could say was, why don't you pack your bags and leave tonight? I didn't say it was clever. I was like, he's not going there, is he? I'm
No.
not a big Eddie Money fan, so.
Wasn't he? I think he was uncredited on a song.
He does have a pretty distinctive voice, though.
Yeah.
He used to be a cop. And there's some irony in that. He used to be a cop, and then one of my favorite singers stopped singing to be a cop.
Nice.
That was 9/11. He was the lead singer of Iced Earth. That was Matt Barlow, and Now he's a DC cop. He's got a couple of side project bands. I think his most recent is Ashes of Aries.
Yeah. Eddie Money sang on the theme for Caddyshack and wasn't credited.
Sang on the theme. That was like Kenny Loggins, though, right?
Yeah.
He sang backup vocals or something.
Yeah, there's he has his own part, and I mean it's tiny, but it's still there.
Huh.
Anyway. Just an odd bit of trivia rattling around in my brain. You know, it's like the one screensaver thing bouncing around. Just
Oh, so it's a very, very slow version of Super Breakout, which is what happens in my brain.
yeah.
And I just said something that half the audience don't know what the hell it is.
Oh.
Probably more than that.
I remember we had Breakout for the Atari. Had the
Yeah, right.
the weird paddles that you turned.
That's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Half the audience don't know what an Atari is.
Yeah, I don't think I'm getting all this done tonight. There's too much.
You don't think you're getting all of what done? Is it homework for your class?
Yeah, it's getting stuff for
Just
setting up a class that's just for the Venezuelan kids, getting the notes set up.
Did you hear Venezuela took U.S. prisoners?
No?
Yep.
Because they won a war?
Well, actually, it's been put forth because they took prisoners before, and Biden got them out and was like, had some kind of agreement with them that they wouldn't take any more U.S. prisoners. And then because he's presented himself as so weak, now everybody's going to take prisoners. This is like it's an actual Navy, it's an actual Navy serviceman, current Navy serviceman, is one of the ones that they released the name for.
Jeez. I had
Yeah.
not heard that.
Yep, I just learned that today, so I guess it just happened within the last day or so. I would guess because it was an update on Shapiro that it probably happened yesterday or today, like last night or today.
No, I had not heard anything about that.
Disgusting, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So has the mic been working pretty much this whole show?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it was something in the headphones plug. These headphones are really good headphones. They're sound resistant headphones and sound suppressing headphones. But I've noticed that sometimes when I plug them in to my laptop, they look like they're all the way plugged in, but they're not. And then they'll have an effect like they either halfway work or don't work at all. So I was wondering if that has some kind of effect on this mic. It's so weird that this is a really good mic when it works, but when it doesn't, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I've never heard it malfunction. It's just other people tell me that I've had weird sounds and squelches, and you've been here for most of that, actually. Like, even when Joe was here.
I'm going to end up learning Spanish, but not how to speak it, just how to read. And not probably grammatically correct. But, well, like, so I have a thing called Live Binder they're like virtual binders. And so I'm making one for these kids that part of it's Spanish and English. So, like 8 parts of speech is ocho partes de la oración or something like that. I can't say it. But
Yeah, ocho is 8.
Ocho partes de la oración. Anyway, 8 parts of speech. So I can recognize 8 parts of. So I'm going to guess speech is la oración, like oration.
Right.
So, but like some of this stuff, it's kind of cool that I can do it, I guess. But on the other hand, it's like I do not get paid to translate stuff into Spanish. That is not my job.
It is now.
Yeah. I mean, I'll get paid. Yeah, that's just the thing. Like, my credentials say I know my English, not that I know any other language. So, and some might question how well I know English. But this is definitely outside my wheelhouse. Anyway. Yeah, I'm not going to do anything world-shattering for these kids because there's not enough time in the day. But
the question is if they want to learn.
That's true, and the nice thing is I'm pretty certain if let's say I make this and the answer is no, they don't, it'll quickly become apparent, and I'll go back to doing nothing because I'm not going to waste my time. It's one of those things where it's like, if I wanted to use my phone, Google Translate, and focus just on these two, I could probably do it. It'd be slow going, but we'd make headway. But that means I ignore the rest of the class, and I can't do that. To be in an English classroom at this level with zero understanding of English is kind of an exercise in futility. Like they'll get
It's
some
unfair to them.
but like, how am I supposed to put a grade on that?
Yeah, it's unfair to them.
I agree. Well, it's unfair if you focus on giving them a grade that actually is comparable. But
No, I mean, it's unfair of the administration to put them in a class that's advanced beyond what they are able to communicate.
well, I agree, but they have to put them. It's one of those things where they have to have an English class, and really they're supposed to have an ELL person, and they hired one, but like, she just started. These kids have been there for weeks, so it's so bad. Like, it's no one's fault really, but it is messed up.
I mean, it's no one's fault.
Well,
it's obviously somebody's fault. It can't be no one's fault.
yeah,
Somebody chose to put them. Why didn't they have a remedial English class for them?
because we don't have remedial English classes.
Well, yeah, but if they're going to accommodate,
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, we're supposed to accommodate, but it's like, okay, but if you can't find anyone to hire, you can't find anyone to hire. It's just, what are you going to do? You know what I mean?
well, if you can't teach them English because they can't communicate, then what are you going to do?
Well, that's
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
well-
saying. Like, if they're going to do those kids justice, they've got to go out of their way. Anyway, that's a long discussion. That's
well,
probably
again,
not my wheelhouse anyway. But I just
The
feel
appreci-
like they're not doing those kids justice by putting them in a class that they're not prepared for, and not giving them any preparation for a
Well,
language
yeah.
that they don't speak. Like, I wouldn't want to go over to Spain and be expected to write anything legible in Spanish, or even be able to read or whatever, anything legible in Spanish, or anything comprehensible in Spanish. Like, I would have to have some kind of instruction. Of course, on the other end, I probably wouldn't go if I didn't have any kind of way of communicating, because that's kind of a way to say, here, I'm
right, but they're children, so A, that's not their fault. And
Oh no, I'm
B,
not blaming them.
Well, this is what I'm saying, though, where I say it's no one's fault, really, because I don't know why they came to the United States. I'm just going to assume, it was necessary. And the fact that we don't have anyone on staff isn't because we weren't looking. It was because we couldn't find anyone on staff, and there's only so much money in the budget anyway. And so whose fault is a budget shortfall? I can't figure out who I would point to and say it's your fault, because the whole system is messed up, and I can't say whose fault that would be. Man, I hope they know this first vocab list I'm going to give them, because it's one of the most simplistic vocab lists I've ever made. But it's a place to start, because I was asking, I was like, all right, do these people have? So we hired this woman, and I don't even know who she is. And I'm like, okay, so I don't know how to find who she is, and I just want a list of like vocab words, if nothing else, right? And I can't even get that, so I had to make it up on my own. So I'm giving them really basic words so that they
Where'd you go? Brett seems to have disappeared.
Yeah, I just got kicked out of the thing.
I was wondering where you went.
Yeah.
Like at first I thought my earphones or something was screwed, but then I was like, wait a minute, I do still hear the music. like
Well, that's the other thing. I'm like looking through because I've got multiple screens up, and so then I'm like, wait, did I just move the screens? And then, I'm like, wait, no, I don't hear any music. So yeah. Anyway, it was my fault.
I'm gonna get more barbarian music.
You okay?
Not to be confused with Bavarian.
Bavarian music. Nice. Some pop bands. Yeah, so if you were, thrust into a place where you didn't speak the language, I'm going to guess you'd probably have a few basic words that you'd want to know. And
yeah, that's probably pretty accurate.
I love technology. I hit my technology. Okay. Yeah, so I chose like hello, goodbye, please, thank you, yes, no, water, food, help, and bathroom for the first one.
They don't have any English at all?
Well, they can use their devices, but it's slow. So at least this is getting them to practice something other than.
No, I'm not burning on them or whatever. I'm just saying, I'm asking if they don't have any at all. There's none. There's no. They don't know yes or no. They don't know the very, very simple things.
I can't. I think one of them knows a little. But the other one, I'm pretty certain knows nothing when it comes to English. And, whatever. It's.
Yeah, I'm not dogging them really. I'm wondering, like, because like I know yes and no in Spanish, you know.
Right, and they might know it, and that's okay.
Of course, I have probably, I don't know, I might have more excuse or more cause to know it because it's more common, because we have a big Spanish speaking population in the US. But you would think that they have some kind of English speaking population there. Like I'm not making, you know, I'm not trying to dog them or whatever. I'm just wondering if they don't have any. Because there's another thing that I would do if I was a kid, probably.
Is pretend not to know?
Yeah.
I agree, and I understand that, but
like I'm not saying they are either, but
well, yeah,
I would say that there would have to be something.
Well, it's also a matter of I don't know where to start from.
Right.
So I will start here and carry on as far as I can.
And I say there has to be something, but that's not actually true. They don't, because like at a certain age, you don't care about it either, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't. And 12, you might be starting to get curious around 12, but I don't know if you feel like obligated at that age.
Well, you know, if they already know these words, it'll be an easy list, and that's okay. But it'll get them used to how the system works, and it's a start, you know. It's about as far as I can get. I don't think I'm going to do it the way I do my other classes.
Do you have any bilingual kids?
Yeah, and some of them will, but then it starts to be a conversation that I'm not really comfortable with, because you got three students talking and you have no idea what they're saying, and they start laughing and giggling, and it's like, yeah, okay.
Well, you can probably bet if they're laughing and giggling, unless you said something that you think is funny,
Yeah.
then they're not up to.
Right. It's just really hard to know. And
I get that. I just was wondering, like, if there were other kids that could help, that maybe help ease them into the simple things, like, you know, like where's the bathroom, or
right.
What time is it, or whatever.
You know, it's a matter of and I'm not a foreign language teacher, and so I don't. Like I said, I am not trained in how to introduce a language to someone.
Do you want to be?
No, not particularly. I mean, I would love to be multilingual, but I'm not. And it's just one of those things where it's like, all right. And,
I was just asking because, like, I would love to be multilingual. I just the thing about being bilingual, at least bilingual, is that you have to have someone to talk to keep it up. You know.
I agree.
Not just learn the words, but put them in practice in enough of a regular usage that you're not reaching when you're trying to speak the language.
Right.
I think, you know, anyone that's bilingual or multilingual or has got a gift, not just a skill, but a gift, because it's not easy to learn other languages that aren't your own. And I've talked to quite a few people, especially in the David Finch fan server, they are not English speaking language first language, and I really admire them, especially those that are writing and they're trying to write, because they're trying to overcome things that I don't necessarily think I could be able to overcome. So kudos to anyone that speaks multiple languages.
What's really going to be funny though is when they start figuring out the system of the class better than
The English speaking kids.
because that'll be what probably ends up happening. And whatever. Oh.
Aside from your current need, if you could choose another language to speak, what would it be?
Well, yeah, I'd probably go with Spanish before anything else. I mean, I can speak some German, but again, why? And
Well, I mean, like you can choose whatever reason why. I just wanted to know if there was one that you would have for a choice, other than needing it for what you're doing now.
right, I just think that if I was going to choose something to study, I would
Not that that's
look
not
at something
valid.
that is the most useful. And I chose German when I was in school because it got me out of reading class because I hated reading class.
That's
And,
ironic.
Yeah, I know. It's just that, when you assign something, it sucks. And I'm sorry, but I've never thought most textbooks give any kind of thought to any real thought to what boys are going to like. Or their attempts are just sad. Like I got this story that's in my textbook. It's about it's called The Rogue Wave, and it's all right. I mean, it's fiction about a giant wave. Okay, and I always think they choose lame things that are. There's hardly ever anything good in the textbook. So, part of that's because I like genre fiction, and genre fiction isn't considered to be academic enough. So, whatever. When I was making my first batch of videos for Moodle stuff, I needed to make a fake class, and I'm real obvious. I labeled it fake class, and my students went, "I want to join that one." The whole point is that I can't have student names on the video. You can't join it. It's not for you. Nope. Whereas if I wanted them to join another class, I'd have to, it's like pulling teeth. Well, Rich, oh, you're muted. Best conversation of the night. Well, Rich, it's 11. Like, it should be, about time to go. Whoa! And he has gone, apparently. Okay.
I'm on.
Okay.
When I unplug the mic,
Ah.
apparently it stops the camera too. So
Oh.
I'm just trying to make sure it's set on the right thing. Yeah, I knew it wasn't gonna be. I don't know why. That's the way it is. I had to literally switch this over. Now I've got a weak signal. I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. This is really weird because I all of a sudden just stopped hearing everything.
Oh.
So I don't know. Now that I'm noticing it's a weak signal, maybe that's part of it. But I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't seem that I'm having an issue. You're hearing me now.
Right.
But I stopped hearing through the headphone set. So
Well, anyway.
I don't even know if you could hear me on the mic. So
Well, it said you were muted, so.
no, that's when I unplugged the mic to switch it over.
Oh, okay.
I was telling you, I actually told you I was going to because,
Oh, I did not hear that.
yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, but the mic wasn't dead. The mic was still alive. It claims it was alive.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, we're pretty close, actually, to what I can do. I'm just doing the tonal values on the small stuff. Making sure that they have a little bit of different tone where they're turned away from the light.
All right. Well, I got to go because morning will come too soon. And
Oh, I thought we had about 15 minutes left.
no, it's
Okay, well, I'll just kill it here. I mean, I can paint from there anyway. So
all right.
I was just so close to doing the little stuff. Whatever.
Well, anyway, I got to go. I will talk
All
to
right.
you
Well,
Thursday.
good night. God bless. Much love. Thanks for everyone that watched, subscribed, liked, followed. Have a good one.
Peace.